she's a facilitator, she's an integrator. She worked for many, many years. She's one of the people that was here when this organization was created. So I don't know if 9 or 10 years, something like this. And she has been here during everything. And she's also being the director of the school for a long time. And in this moment, we are here to give this cycle together. And I'm very happy, honestly, to have this chance because for us, it is not just about being colleagues. It is about being friends. It is about having a bond, and we are communicating many times during the week, during the day, but the possibility to have the pleasure to assist to this event where there is one person that is stepping in and is allowing everybody to to see them, to hear them, to feel them. So I'm enthusiastic about this project as well, because more than opening ourselves to you, we are creating the condition for us to be here for our friends. And so here there are for sure many members of the organization that are just here because from the profound of their heart, they just want to receive a bit more tonight of Laura. So I'm very happy that this is happening. In the same time, tonight we have a topic. During these master classes, we promised that we will make classes about the no method of Alberto. Alberto Varela is our founder, and he has created a no method of inner evolution. So no method, because a method can substitute something that comes from you, because there is no method to love. There is no method to make this step. Okay? So this method has 14 premises, and today we have the number 3. So welcome one more time. Is it the time to pass you? She's ready. Okay, here we go. She's also muted, but now we will solve it right away. Welcome.
So, good evening, everybody. Thank you, Amar, for the presentation. To get a little bit emotional before the start. Thank you to all of those who are joining us from your houses, from your cars, from wherever you are right now on your devices. And thank you to the 25 students that are present here. It's always an important moment when we're starting one of our training cycles, and this one is particularly special since it's the first time that we're actually doing these master classes live, integrated as part of our trainings. My name is Laura, as Amar advanced, and I've been part of this organization for almost 11 years now. I began in July 2014. Back in that day, the organization was called Ayahuasca International. Then a little bit later, it became Inner Mastery, then Inner Evolution, and now we're in a new transition, in a new evolution towards migrating to an association that's called Inner Discovery. And there's many reasons for this movement, for this migration, but in general, it's all a very natural consequence of our own evolution, our own path, our own discovery. And by our, I mean both mine, theirs, the colleagues that have been side by side for years, them, the students that are here, that are also joining this movement, and now also you, because now you've also become part of this. Even if the only thing that you ever do with us is listen to this masterclass, even if just for a minute. To get into the topic of tonight a little bit, in Tibetan Buddhism, which I have extensively studied, they say that if you come in contact with something just for 1 second in your life, it can have a deeply transformative effect in this lifetime and in many lifetimes to come. In Buddhism, they talk about being in touch with the Buddha, even if it's just by hearing the name once in your life. I personally believe that it doesn't have so much to do with a name or a label or something that you call Buddha, but being in touch with something that is part of a field of human transformation. And if you ask me the common denominator between Ayahuasca International, Inner Mastery, Inner Evolution, Inner Discovery, I would say that the common denominator has always been the field. The field where we all come together. Not the person who opens the field, not the person who holds the field. Every single person that has ever been a part of this field has left a little bit of themselves in it. As if I like to picture it as a beautiful spider web where there's thousands of tiny little, very fine threads. Some that are more solid, more structural, some that are just minutely there. But every thread is part of that network. Another thing that has grown and developed over the years has been what we call, and as Amar mentioned briefly, the method. It's what we call the method of inner evolution. The method of inner evolution is formed by 14 principles that hold many keys for human transformation as we have experienced it. It's not a scientific method. It's not a method that you're going to find in books, reports, studies. It's an empirical method that has by now been experienced by, I would say, thousands of people amongst all the retreats that we have held in the past 10 years. On some, it may have had a deeper impact than on others, but certainly in a few hundred people, it has had a transformative and lasting impact. This is the method that is the underlying current in the retreats that we hold. We hold 20 retreats per month, more or less, in different countries, in different cities, one of them being Hamburg, also Cologne, in Italy, in Romania, Belgium, Switzerland, Spain, Ireland, Turkey, Malta, Colombia. The retreats that we hold are self-discovery retreats with conscious use of plant medicine amongst ayahuasca, bufo, kambo, yopo. And these retreats are held in such a way, in such a space where plant medicine is used for people to reconnect and rediscover or remember parts of themselves that have always been there. It's not to bring something new. It's to remember something that has been with you, that is inherent from the beginning. These retreats are a combination of this plant medicine, also of integration, what we call integrative psychotherapy, transcendent psychology, which is a group psychotherapy of sorts, where not only do we support and hold space for people to reach new comprehensions, new perspectives on their conditioning, their trauma, their wounding, their past, but also to remember and reconnect with their potential, with their essence. So we don't ignore the conditioning, we don't forget the divine nature that's in all of us, but we integrate in a holistic way all the parts that we are formed by. The past that we have experienced, the present that we might be struggling with, and opening the space for the future to bring everything that we deserve, and oftentimes cannot even imagine that we deserve. In order to hold these retreats, in order to have these retreats in a field that holds the space for everything that I have just mentioned, which is not nothing. These 14 premises that we are now sharing over these master classes were developed. Essentially, I have to admit as a spoiler that every premise basically says the same thing, to be honest. I don't know if the students have started to notice this, that we're constantly saying the same thing in many different ways. Many, many different ways. But it's somehow beautiful to be able to talk about the same thing in so many different ways. In some way, entheogens, plant medicine, actually do the same thing. You can take ayahuasca, you can take this, you can take campo, you can take yopo, you can take San Pedro, you can take every single experience is ultimately and essentially taking you to the same place, but each one speaks a different language. Sort of like trying to bring you to this center place, figuring out which language is this person going to resonate with. Is it going to be the language of ayahuasca? Is it going to be premise number 10? Is it going to be this song? Is it going to be this dynamic? What is it going to be? And that's part of the mystery of each unique human being, each unique human individual, to discover their own language, the language of their own soul. Tonight's premise, actually, I did not choose to talk about this topic, apparently. Because there is a possibility that even when we're not choosing, there is some part of us that I like to call unconscious that has already chosen. And I simply signed up for this date, to be honest. And I couldn't even remember the topic that I had signed up for. And when I saw the topic, I had to laugh. And it was extremely confronting. Premise number 3 says, you do not need external teachers forever. And I have to say that I have been particularly attracted and oriented towards teachers since I started my path of self-discovery or personal evolution. Some people are not. It might seem like I'm saying something very obvious if it's resonating with you, but some people have a completely different path where they're never attracted or called towards following a teacher. It wasn't my case. This organization was founded by a man called Alberto Varela, who some of you may have known. some of you may even have followed at some point his teachings, his retreats. Some people were very against him, some people very towards him. He was the founder. But he also always made a point of saying, I have founded this, but I am not the creator. We are the creators. And possibly the most obvious things that proves that that was true is the fact that he died a year and a half ago, became ill 2 years ago by now, almost 2 years ago, and yet here we are. And we've grown in different ways. We've changed in almost every way, but we're still here. So obviously, there are some things that outlive their founders because they don't belong to that one person, they belong to nobody. And when something doesn't belong to anybody, it belongs to all. And the reason why I'm mentioning him so much right now is because in many ways, in every single way, he was a teacher for me. And perhaps it's a great way to honor his memory as a tribute to dedicate this class and what I'm going to say to him. Because if you have a teacher who manages to not create dependency, then there's chances that you have actually found an authentic teacher. Even if he's not clearly recognizable as such all the time. I began my journey when I was living in the United States in 2008. And it was in quite an interesting way. I call it an accident or a miracle, depending on my state of mind. For no apparent reason, one day I realized that there were patterns in my life. I had never even consciously recognized the word pattern. And suddenly I said, I've been in this shitty place before. This is a pattern. And I have heard these words before. And I have had these thoughts before. And that's how it began. And I signed up in a school, in a therapy school called the Brennan School of Healing. And shortly thereafter, I became involved in Tibetan Buddhism. And Tibetan Buddhism, and I think Buddhism in general, but as I haven't studied it, I can't say. It's very focused on having an authentic teacher. And there's all sorts of rules of how to find a teacher. And in general, in Eastern traditions, the figure of the teacher is sacred. It's almost pivotal for anybody who's really following an authentic path towards the discovery of truth. So very early on, I became acquainted with a phrase that is potentially familiar to many of you that say, it's a phrase that says, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And when is it normally that we look for a teacher, or when we look for healing, or when we look for a path of evolution? Normally is when we really hit rock bottom. when there's a point in our life that the suffering becomes unbearable, when we can find no way out, when the only solution is saying, please, I need help. Does this resonate with anybody? That if you're not in that place of extreme unbearable suffering, you can always procrastinate. You can always say, it's not so bad. It's not so bad. But there's a moment where you truly say, I can't do this anymore. We say that consciousness cannot feel. Life cannot feel. It doesn't have feelings. Feelings, emotions belong to humans. So sometimes life, sometimes consciousness, sometimes the energy of healing, how I like to call it, brings us gifts. Gifts to enhance, to promote, to activate our own healing. But it does it in such a way that for us is experienced as suffering. For life without feelings, it's an opportunity. For us, it's a tragedy sometimes. And the importance of finding a teacher comes from the realization that the place of suffering that you find yourself at has been a consequence of all the decisions that you have made. It's an effect. It's a loop. It's a loop that you find yourself in. So then this external figure of a teacher is as if you're saying, you know, this is the book of all the decisions that I have made in my life. It's written by me. Look, it actually is. This is my journal that I started in 2008 when I was in a moment of extreme suffering. It's written by me. It's my handwriting. Teacher, can you please continue writing on the pages where I have not written to see what happens in my life if the decisions come from something that's not my own system, my own mechanism? Because I recognize that I am not being able to make any decision from outside of that mechanism. My mind that is creating all the suffering, that is experiencing everything as suffering, is making every single decision. Clearly, until I have created a little bit of distance between my mind and myself, I shouldn't be making any more decisions because I'm just going to continue digging a deeper and deeper hole for myself. This is also a moment of awakening when you realize that. When you realize that there is a part of you that's making decisions that are not in your favor, and that on your own, you cannot get out of that loop because you're identified, because you're trapped. But the mere fact that you're recognizing it is already potentially the greatest step in your journey. And then, of course, comes the challenge. Who are you going to hand your book to? And that's the challenge, that's the risk. That's why in Buddhism, they make such a strong impression on finding an authentic teacher. And possibly that's also why in the Western world, there's been so many scandalous, let's say, experiences and stories about inauthentic teachers. Which is a very silly thing to say, because if the teacher is inauthentic, the teacher's not a teacher. It's something else, right? Many of us have not experienced trust. We don't have that experience of trust. The teacher becomes an external figure of trust, of the trust that you not yet have inside of you. And suddenly you find somebody outside of you that you trust 100%. So much so that you're trusting the person to make the decisions for you. In Tibetan Buddhism, it's very strict in the sense that I have had people from my Buddhist community in the past that every single decision they would run through the teacher. He was a very authentic teacher, I have to say, extremely. A very recognized Rinpoche from Tibet. And I have seen it happen, this moment of fully putting the trust outside. It didn't happen to me in that moment for whatever, but it wasn't that it wasn't trust. It just wasn't my moment to have that, to experience that state of surrender, or I wasn't in tune. I wasn't connected to the importance of that. It wasn't my moment, let's say, or my context, or whatever it was. It didn't happen. But I have seen it, and it surprised me, I have to say. But I have seen it, and I can recognize now I can recognize in hindsight the importance of that. It's as if the teacher represents the archetype of the father, but of the father figure. Perhaps it's not the father that you've had. And it's not the father that I had. I had a wonderful father, but not the archetype of the kind of authority that gives birth to trust inside of you. He gave birth to something else inside of me, but not that kind of trust in myself. So when you can recognize that your decisions have led you to that shitty place of suffering, one of the first consequences is, I would almost say, a healthy or necessary loss of trust in yourself, which is not in yourself. It's in that part of yourself. But because in that moment, that part of yourself is almost everything that you know, you lose trust in everything about yourself, in your decisions, in your likes, in your dislikes, in your life choices, in almost everything. And the purpose or the intention of having a teacher for that amount of time is for that trust to be reflected to you. Because trust is an energy that travels from the outside inwards. Archetypically, energetically, we should experience it from our parents. It's not necessarily unconditional love that we need to experience from our parents. It's unconditional trust that every child needs to experience from their parents. The feeling that your parents trust you unconditionally and absolutely in the path that your soul will choose to live in this life. More or less, none of us have experienced that unconditional trust. It's trust from the parents to the child. The way in which the child experiences that trust inside is love. So when a child doesn't experience that trust from the parents, what starts to lack inside the child is self-love, self-trust. But internally, in such a tender state of being, it's love. Because when we are born, the only thing that we're ready to experience is love. So when the experience of trust is built from the teacher and starts to travel inwards into the student, sooner or later, if it's an authentic teacher, it will transform, it will transmute into self-love. Because when you start to trust yourself, the only thing that you can feel for yourself is love. And when you experience love for yourself, the only thing that you can give out is love for others. It's trust, it's presence for others. And when we experience self-love and self-trust, what would you still need an external teacher for? That wonderful phrase that is very widespread. When the student is ready, the teacher appears, has another, even deeper and more wonderful part that is somehow not so widespread. And the way that that sentence ends is, when the student is truly ready, the teacher disappears. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. And when the student is truly ready, the teacher is no longer. I have experienced this in my own life. I can't say it was an easy learning, but there's something about the energy of healing that's extremely unacceptable and unbearable at times. Because it's as if you can never truly find a comfort zone. And there are several comfort zones. The first one is the one where you're suffering and you're making all the decisions and you're suffering. Then you come out of your comfort zone and you say, I can't continue making the same shitty decisions from the same shitty place. Can somebody please start deciding for me? And that is initially out of your comfort zone. But then there's a point where it becomes very comfortable for somebody to tell you what to do, when to do it, what not to do, to give you all the indications, to always be there for you even. And always is, it's a lot of time, you know. It becomes very comfortable. It becomes a new form of dependency if the teacher is not very alert. So it becomes a new comfort zone. And then when the time comes for the teacher to disappear, that is a huge challenge. Huge. The even worse news, because it can get worse, is that if either the teacher is not alert or you are not alert and you don't recognize that the time has come for the teacher to disappear, then life will intervene. And like we said before, life intervenes when it has to intervene. And if you have to do something and you're not doing it, then life is going to do it for you. And then it can become even more complicated. In my case, it became very complicated from many, many angles. However, I have to recognize that there was a moment where I felt clearly that the place that the teacher, that the master held in my life was no longer the place of the master. And it was very painful to recognize that And I resisted because I wanted him to still occupy that place of the master. But he wasn't. I didn't feel that anymore. It was a very internal, very introspective, very intimate, and very confronting process. Very painful, almost like cutting another umbilical cord. But I had to recognize that this man that I had trusted, that I had loved so deeply as a teacher, did not hold the place of the teacher in my heart any longer. And there was a space of emptiness that had me very disoriented for some time. But what came afterwards was the discovery of my own center that possibly I had never connected with before. And if there's something that I can wish for everybody here, is that sooner or later you can connect to that center. You can find your center. You can feel yourself in that way, with that trust, and also with the full force of the responsibility that it brings. Because in that moment, when there is no master anymore, the only thing that you can do is take responsibility. There's a lot of us, or a lot of people, that want to become the masters of our own life. We want to discover inner mastery. We were even called like that, inner mastery. But we're not willing to become students, not even for a short period of time. And it's extraordinary, because if you ever found somebody who wants to be a doctor without becoming a medical student, you would think it's ridiculous, right? It's a little bit the same thing if you think about it. We want to discover inner mastery, but we don't want teachers and we don't want to be students. Then and perhaps that's the misunderstanding, that it's only for a short period of time. It's only for a moment. And it's equally important to know when it begins and to know when it ends. The Buddha always said that everyone was a Buddha, that each person had their own Buddha nature to discover, that was the discovery. This is still alive here in this premise number 3. Do not follow external teachers forever. And I have the feeling that the form of the teachers is also going to shift. It's already shifting, if it has not already shifted. Sometimes we're not always aware of what has already transformed, because we're always looking back. Osho said that the next Buddha would come in the form of a conscious community. That is what happens, what is happening in our retreats, in our school, what's happening right here now in this epicenter in Hamburg. The new Buddha is being born in the form of a conscious community. And that is possibly the most powerful of all the medicines that we share in our retreats. The connection to a conscious community. The ayahuasca, it's wonderful. The integration's deep and powerful, but the bonds that are formed between people are truly the greatest medicine of all. Then that spider web that I spoke about in the beginning becomes a network of healing. And all the threads are the lines through which the energy of healing travels back and forth amongst all of us. It's what we call bonds. And that is a teacher that never needs to disappear. This is all that I have to share in the moment on my side. I thank you for listening. I've been seeing some of the messages and comments from some people popping up on the screen every now and then. Thank you for allowing the words to reach you. Thank you for allowing them to enter. Thank you for the opening. I don't know if there's any questions that anybody would like to ask. If so, we can now shift into a more interactive space of questions and answers. I don't know if the moderators have any questions. Yes?
Maybe it wasn't fully phrased as a question. Someone said, some people maybe need teachers because they don't trust themselves or their power. Maybe because they're sad or cares in their life. Seems like it works for a teacher, so looking for a father or mother. I don't know, it seems a bit weak, this kind of approach to me. If you follow someone else's discovery, the healing won't happen for yourself.
Maybe. Maybe. I know, to be very honest, a lot of people are looking for their father or for their mother, and the one that they never had, the one that they wanted to have, whatever. Clearly, we're talking, yes, of a place of lack, maybe. Possibly also of a space of infinite potential, because you might be looking for your father and you might find God. The energy of the seeker, of searching, is quite precious. It doesn't mean that you're going to find what you're looking for, but there is a certain predisposition to consider that there are things that you don't know. And when you consider that there are things that you don't know, there is a huge space that opens up. And I'm aware that I know very little if I compare it to the vastness and hugeness of the universe. I'm sure that I know very, very little. Sometimes it's scary to think about everything that you can discover. Sometimes it's exciting. Sometimes in an ayahuasca session, you're very excited about what's going to come. And when it comes, it's like, can somebody please put an end to this? But you can't. You can't. You can't. Once there's doors that once you open them, all you can do is relax and receive. Anything else?
You also as the teachers.
Yes, certainly. I mean, they're called master plants. Yes, of course. They're great teachers. And they also, I would even say that they also fall into the scope of this premise if you don't need to follow external teachers forever. the question was, do you consider plant medicine as a teacher? And the answer is that yes, certainly. Powerful teachers. Also ones that you don't need to follow or use or recur to forever. And that's also one of the cores of our retreats, is that the process with plant medicine is only for a period of time. It doesn't mean that you only take ayahuasca 2 or 3 times in your life and never again, because otherwise it means that you're dependent. No. But it does mean that probably the approach to it changes. Maybe for a process of self-discovery, of healing, of deep evolution, what we recommend is 3 retreats. 3 retreats. To have something that really consolidates, not just an experience, but truly a process. Maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 months in your life. I don't know, it depends. Every person is very unique. And then there's some people who finish what we call this 3 moon cycle, and they're very grateful. We maybe stay in touch for forever, I don't know. But they don't feel the need to continue taking ayahuasca again, and that's wonderful. And some people return every now and then. Just today, I was actually very happy. I don't know if this person is listening, but a very dear participant from our retreats in Switzerland who had done this 3 moon process in 2016, 2017. Today he decided to come to the retreat this weekend in Switzerland. Oh, beautiful. He hasn't come in a while, in a long time. He did a very strong process. The bond stayed. He knew that if one day he would like to return, he knows where to go. And this weekend he'll be returning. We'll be meeting him. He's lovely. And maybe it's the first time that he comes to a retreat in 5, 6, 7 years. It's not forever, but it remains a reference.
There is one question, how can we become part of the community?
How can you become part of the community? You already are part of the community. You already are part of the community. It's just a matter of your physical body arriving, maybe. Maybe to a retreat, maybe, well, I don't know why I'm answering, but maybe JB, you can contact this person and give more information on the communities. We used to have a lot of community centers. We had like 14 at one point, but it was quite a lot to manage. That's part of a different story, but it became like a full-time occupation. And now we currently have 3 community centers, which are also the retreat houses where we hold the retreats and the trainings. And there's also some people who live in them. We have one in Istanbul, in Turkey, which is beautiful. We have this one in Hamburg, which is magical. And there's currently 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people living here. 9. There's currently 9 people living here. And then we have another
10, so.
10 because we have a newborn baby. Actually. We have a 6-day-old baby also living here. And we have one in Milan also.
We have many to choose from. Let's go with how may one conclude a teacher's authentic?
Hi, Marco. It's Marco. How may one conclude a teacher is authentic? It's actually a very good question. There are rational answers that can be found in books, which might be a source of inspiration. There's in Tibetan Buddhism, they actually give you a guideline of how to find an authentic teacher. What I discovered for myself was possibly not as comfortable as a guideline in a book. Maybe you can only fully realize that the teacher has been authentic when the teacher has disappeared. Before that, you can assume, you can speculate, you can feel in your heart if that person is bringing you towards your center or taking you outside. If the person always brings you back inside, sooner or later, they'll disappear.
Can you please describe how ayahuasca process is?
Now I want to ask her, why did you choose that question? I can't. I can describe my own ayahuasca process. I'm certain I would not be able to describe somebody else's process. An ayahuasca process can happen in so many different ways. And I feel that each way is designed precisely, it's tailored for each person. Sometimes you connect with divinity, with the light, the beauty in you, in your life, with love. Sometimes you connect with sheer hell. Sometimes you laugh, sometimes you cry. Sometimes you dance, sometimes you can't move all night. Sometimes you swear that you'll never do it again. I would say that somehow, as with the answer about the teacher, there's a huge importance in what happens after the ayahuasca session, the ayahuasca process. To be supported by people that are going to assist you in going back to yourself. To not get distracted with questions, with answers, with things that are so much outside. But to really bring everything inside and discover what it has to do with you, what it has for you.
When the student is truly ready, does he become its own teacher?
The question is still presented from a place of separation, where there's still a teacher and a student. If some form of mastery has awakened inside of you, then there's no teacher, there's no student. There's a union between parts of you that were separated before. When that happens, you no longer look for confirmation of duality. You start seeking, seeing, and finding unity inside and outside. At least that's part of the path that I'm walking in this moment. A greater connection to unity, or a greater, what would be the word? Concern? No. a great attraction to unity, a great interaction with unity.
How comparable is plant medicine with mushroom teachings?
I wouldn't know. Simply because I've never experienced mushrooms in anything else than microdoses. But I know a lot of people with a lot of experience, if you're interested in comparing, but it's not my case.
Does ayahuasca really help to bring your insight to the outside? Because last time I somewhat got scared.
And that's from Carita Lawrence.
Do you want to answer?
No,
Does ayahuasca, can you repeat?
Does ayahuasca really help to bring your insight to the outside? Because last time I somewhat got scared.
It seems like two different questions. Does ayahuasca really help? Would be one question. I would say if there's any such thing as help, which our last two master classes were about, it would be more about allowing what is outside to come inside initially. What you could possibly have become scared of is an entirely different topic, possibly. If we want to ultimately say that it facilitates the dissolution of the dissolution of separation, then inside and outside sort of become one thing, which can obviously be very scary, but
Is ayahuasca as a tool unavoidable for the inner mastery project?
unavoidable is a really big word. Um, if I'm going to do some instant translation here, if you mean whether you have to take ayahuasca in order to participate in one of our retreats, then the answer is absolutely not. It's optional. And there's actually more and more people that are coming without taking ayahuasca. And furthermore, all of our retreats in Italy are without ayahuasca because ayahuasca is illegal in Italy. And there's also many, many ways of taking ayahuasca. Microdosing is one of them, which is wonderful also, and can also be experienced in a retreat. But yes, it's avoidable.
What kind of herbals do you use in retreats?
What kind of?
I will think How do the retreats look like and serving? Is there a shaman doing it?
Mm-hmm. No. The short answer is no, normally not. Once, the first time I was in the Amazonian jungle in Colombia, I spoke with a 70-year-old shaman and also with his nephew, who was in his 20s. And they were both very experienced, of course. And the younger one, I asked him, I called him Taita Juan. It's in Colombian, it's how they call shamans, Taita. And he said, no, please, don't call me Taita. And he explained to me that for them, in order for somebody to be called shaman, Taita, they had to fulfill a series of requirements. Being born in the jungle, descending from a lineage of recognized shamans, start to study plant medicine from the age of 2 years old, more or less, and then being formally recognized as a shaman by the lineage holder. Yes. And then maybe when they were in their 60s, they would not feel embarrassed about being called shaman. And that made me realize that there are many perceptions on the word shaman. If the question is, do we work with this kind of traditional shaman that has been born in the jungle, recognized, blah, blah, blah? No, we mostly don't. Sometimes we do have special retreats when they come here to Europe and they do a few retreats with us. And it's wonderful. We'll probably be doing some retreats at the end of this year with a Colombian shaman. Generally not. We call ourselves facilitators. Part of our training is done with shamans. We do this in Colombia, where we also hold some journeys, some retreats of 10-day retreats. In Colombia, in the jungle, yes, it's the shamans who give the ayahuascas, obviously. But otherwise, our approach is more holistic than shamanic, so it incorporates and integrates some shamanism. It also incorporates Western Eastern philosophies, also Western techniques, and also more conventional and not so conventional psychotherapy. So it becomes really an integrative approach, but not traditionally shamanic.
There is one more topic that is opening up. So I would like to read you the thread, yes, so that we can contextualize it and create a bit of context. Okay, so we have Dietmar is asking, do you think that the shaman is necessary for the ayahuasca ceremony? And then somebody responds, I know I'm from Colombia, therefore the question if you can join or bring a taita here. That's it. There are two questions connected.
I mean, I personally have learned a lot from shamans. We've worked with them here in Europe very often. We are contemplating bringing somebody from Colombia to cooperate for a few retreats at the end of this year. Also because it's beautiful to have them in our training context. In a few weeks, we are having somebody who's not a shaman, but some people consider a shaman. And if you're from Colombia, you might know him. He's the medicine musician Darwin Grajales, but he's not a shaman. So let's say that we do bring people from Colombia who are more traditionally oriented, but it's not part of our, let's say, common approach. It's not what happens in the greater part of our retreats.
How did you solve the suffering caused by human limitation? Because sometimes I feel that the deeper I go into myself and the more consciousness and knowledge I acquire, the more alone I feel. And the connection of the one does not console me for long.
I don't think that I have solved anything, to be honest. But the things that I haven't solved create less and less suffering. It doesn't mean that the pain is not there, but the attachment to that pain or the loop that I was talking about in the beginning is not as present for as long. But I don't think that I have fixed anything. A comprehension that I reached for myself, and if it resonates, well, maybe it can open up something in yourself, is that if you're on any form of spiritual path, being alone is unavoidable. Ayahuasca you can avoid. Connecting to the reality of being alone on a spiritual path cannot be avoided. Because the connection to yourself is a very intimate path. Who are you going to take? Who's going to go with you? Why would you take anybody with you? To discover your being, to connect with your soul. Oftentimes, anyway, we're so full of people inside, of voices, of people who have told us what to do, that are still like living like ghosts, that really the challenge is more to become empty, to become alone, to find yourself alone, and to find yourself on your own. The crucial part here is that being alone does not imply being lonely. And somehow that's also where the importance of the community kicks in. And I don't mean the community where everybody lives together. It's a more ample form of community, one where you know that in different countries, cities across the world, there's people there who are going through the same thing as you are, that you can reach a hand out, that there's going to be somebody at the end of the phone on the other side to receive you, that you can reach out. Then even if you're alone, you don't have to feel lonely.
When do you consider a person ready to be part of the community? After a retreat, surely, but when usually? Say people of your organization to other people, yes, she can live with us if she wants to.
It's not chronological. It's individual. And living in a community, I mean, me personally, in this moment, I don't live in a community. I've lived for a few years in one, and in different times of my life, I lived in one, then I lived on my own, then different stages of my life. It's a little bit like teachers, it's not forever. Because the community is also a teacher, and confronting one at that. But let's say that it's an individual, very, very, very much case by case decision. At least we have to meet, that for sure. We have to feel each other, see each other, connect. But there's no rigid rule for that. I mean, if you're interested, whoever you are, reach out. Find out.
What is the main common thing students learn at this school until they leave it?
I would ask them. There's 20 students here. I'm sure, I don't know if there's a common thing. I'm sure there is. Possibly that there was nothing to learn. And I know that it sounds very cliche and very simple, in that intellectually we all know that there's nothing to learn. The question was, what is the common thing that students learn?
Mm-hmm. We cannot hear the questions, please repeat.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I can actually read them. It's like I have a teleprompt. So yes, I mean, the common thing that students have learned depends also a little bit what you want to focus upon. But I would say that at least the potential of the common thing to learn is that there was nothing to learn. And like I said, it sounds like a cliche, that intellectually we all know, but there's a lot of things that we know intellectually that have not materialized in our life, that we don't live by that intellectual knowledge that we have, and that the way in which we live is completely different. It's as if we have a lot of things to learn because we don't know anything. We know a lot of things that are not so useful, and we have forgotten about many, many essential things. If there's any last questions, otherwise we can slowly bring this to an end. If anybody has any more questions, you can ask us. After this forum, we're still here. We're going to be sending a message to everybody, to all of the different online communities that we have, with a feedback form that we would really, really appreciate for you to fill out, because this is still quite a new project for us. It's our third masterclass. We're still making a lot of adjustments, a lot of improvements. Many of them are based on your feedback. So we're going to be sharing on this online community the feedback form. Please fill it out, and then there's also space for you to comment, so you can also leave more questions there, and one of our advisors will answer you and answer your questions. Yes. So yes, thank you everybody. We're going to continue here in the Hamburg Epicenter with our training cycle. We remain available for everyone. You can find us on the website innermastery.eu. You can find my phone number there. You can find my email there. And please reach out, please contact me. And I look forward to meeting some of you, hopefully soon, staying in touch with as many of you as possible, and seeing you in a few weeks for our 4th masterclass. Thank you very much, everybody. Bye-bye.